We are, in the 21st century, in the middle of a major paradigm shift in medicine. Some call it a revolution. We've discovered what some call a new organ. It's called the gut microbiota, which refers to rich and highly organized microbial communities that reside in our digestive system. As we've introduced antibiotics in medicine and have processed our food supply that can actually starve the gut microbes when it's overprocessed. And so the focus of our program has been development and manufacturing of microbe-based therapeutics to repair the damage to the gut microbes that often is caused by medicine itself. The foundational disease has been C. difficile infection. About 100,000 people every year in the US develop this recurrent C. difficile infection syndrome. And the best treatment for that is repair the original damage, repair the gut microbes. So what we've done is to develop a process that's based on a transplant model. We harvest microbes from healthy donors and then manufacture them in different formulations, which can be liquid or capsules. The most widely used for us is the capsules that can be administered orally. And as few as several, 3, 4, 5 capsules, one-time treatment is sufficient to cure a patient who's been suffering with recurrent C. difficile infections for the preceding months and sometimes years. In addition to our C. diff work, we support a number of clinical trials outside of C. difficile. For example, we support the work of Dr. Jim Adams at Arizona State University, who works with autism. But there are data showing that autism patients do have an altered composition of gut microbes. They may temporarily benefit from a brief antibiotic treatment, but its success is not sustained. And microbes do make many chemicals. About 10% of chemicals in your body are products of microbial metabolism in the gut. Some of these are neurotransmitters that can interact with the nervous system. In addition to autism, we're working with a team in Baltimore, Dr. Dutta, who started a trial in Parkinson's disease. Turns out Parkinson's disease may actually originate in the gut and affect the nerve cells in the gut and then migrate up into the brain. We're working with Dr. Jasmohan Bajaj in Virginia, who is one of the top liver doctors in the country and is really interested in the microbe-liver-brain interaction. He works with patients with advanced liver disease. Interestingly, in some of his work, he found that repairing the gut microbes can decrease cravings for alcohol. And we're anticipating a clinical trial now to test this idea that will be placebo-controlled. A huge area of interest now is immuno-oncology. In case of cancer, we want the immune system to attack the cancer. In case of autoimmune diseases, we don't want the immune system to attack our own body. So immuno-oncology is an area where we're trying to coax the immune system to attack the cancer. And that's a revolutionary part of medicine these days. There's biologic medications that activate the immune system to make it more inflammatory, and it seeks out the cancer and destroys it. However, if the patient takes antibiotics, these medicines don't work as well. So Dr. Amit Kulkarni and Dr. Manish Patel at the University of Minnesota are about to start a clinical trial to see whether we can improve the anti-cancer response in patients receiving these biologic medicines being treated for lung cancer. Now, the dark side of this therapy is that it can actually aggravate autoimmune problems. The most common one is so-called checkpoint colitis. And Dr. Kulkarni also has a clinical trial is developing to see if rebalancing the gut microbes can mitigate this problem. Another area, of course, is inflammatory bowel disease. That's an obvious interest because that's chronic inflammation right in the intestine. Most common types of inflammatory bowel disease are ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease. Dr. Byron Vaughn in our institution is leading some of the work in both of these directions. And there are other emerging clinical trials currently at the regulatory stage, including work at Columbia University in alopecia areata, an autoimmune disease. The problem of multi-drug resistant organisms other than C. difficile, work with an investigator team in Emory, Atlanta, as well as CDC.
I have established our fecal microbiota transplant program in 2012, and since then we have successfully treated over 800 patients who suffered from this terrible infection. And the treatment is also extremely successful for patients with severe disease who are hospitalized and do not respond to any other therapies. And with sequential delivery of this product, we were able to save many lives and many patients from colectomy or surgical removal of their colon using the Minnesota products.
My current research interests in chronic liver disease and hepatic encephalopathy, which is the gut-brain axis change in patients who have liver disease that causes cirrhosis. This is a very serious condition that affects patients' longevity, that affects their quality of life, not only of the patient themselves, but also their caregivers and people who actually have to take care of them. This results in multiple readmissions. Current medications for this do act on the gut, but despite that, many people do have problems with their brain function that can result into these negative psychosocial and clinical outcomes. So the current trial that we are doing, partly because of ACT, helps patients with cirrhosis, with hepatic encephalopathy, who are currently already of standard of care therapy. On top of that, we add the FMT, and we are studying in a randomized double-blind fashion whether this helps people prevent hospitalizations over a long-term period. We are very grateful to Dr. Alex Khoruts, and we are happy that Achieving Cures Together is also part of this effort to potentially help our patients.
These patients spend several weeks in the hospital, and during this period, we treat them with various types of antibiotics to prevent and treat infections. Unfortunately, these antibiotics also kill the beneficial microbes, healthy microbes that patients carry in their intestinal tract. Damage to these healthy microbes has been associated in several studies with poor clinical outcomes after chemotherapy and stem cell transplant. To mitigate this problem, we designed and conducted a large clinical trial at the University of Minnesota where we collected stool samples from healthy individuals in the community. The primary goal of this study was to fix the damage that antibiotics cause to the body, to the microbes in fact, to prevent the adverse clinical outcomes of intensive chemotherapy and stem cell transplantation.
We are studying a very rare heart condition called pulmonary arterial hypertension. This disease affects the blood vessels in the lungs that leads to high pressure in the lungs and affects the right side of the heart. This is a fatal disease, and currently there is no cure for this condition. There is emerging evidence suggesting that the gut microbiome plays an important role. So we are studying whether we can modulate the gut microbiome by using intestinal microbiota capsule to treat this disease and potentially cure this disease.
My research involves studying how to develop microbiota-based therapeutics to treat, prevent, and hopefully one day cure inflammatory bowel disease. All my research involves microbiota-based therapies, often in the form of capsules. These are developed through the Microbiota Therapeutics program at the University of Minnesota. The support from Achieving Cures Together has been essential in every aspect of our research, From development of the capsules to the regulatory support to our study coordinators, we get support on every level. We've actually had patients from as far as California come for some of our clinical trials because what we're doing is not offered routinely in any other part of the country. I'm really hopeful that some of our results will be available in 2023. Our first trial for ulcerative colitis is wrapping up right about now.
So you'll ask, how is it possible that a small team, some 12 people at the University of Minnesota, is able to do all this work, including satisfying the monstrous regulatory requirements from the FDA and GMP manufacturing, running a donor program, doing R&D, and doing the science? The answer to this is teamwork. It's encapsulated in actually the name of our major partner, which is Achieving Cures Together. And together means all of you. We're not supported by Big Pharma. We are driven by just the desire to make an impact, to help patients, to drive science forward for good. And you can become part of that. And of course, the key to this is all our collaborators, the ones that I mentioned, that are leading these clinical trials. So we're the central manufacturing unit, but we need all these collaborators to do the clinical trials, to collect the samples, and we need the scientists to analyze what is the outcome. How is the microbial community changing? What are the different metabolites that are changing so we can understand it better? It's really a completely new frontier of medical therapeutics. It's already saving lives, as I mentioned, for C. difficile patients, and it's making an impact in other diseases. So I hope that you'll become our partner. Thank you so much.